Are you or someone you know looking to buy or sell a home? When you use a HomeGain Realtor to buy or sell a home, you can get $150. Visit HomeGain.com and click on the Promo 150 banner at the top of the page to get started. Compare HomeGain Realtors and choose your favorite. Complete your home purchase or sale transaction with a HomeGain Realtor, and HomeGain will pay you $150. Get started today by going to HomeGain.com. Are you buying or selling a home? Having a realtor can make buying or selling real estate much easier. HomeGain can recommend and connect you with a top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit HomeGain.com. Did you know, according to a HomeGain nationwide survey, that having a realtor working for you improves your chances by 50% of getting your home sold? HomeGain can recommend and connect you with the top real estate agent in your area. Call 866-512-7918 or visit HomeGain.com.
You're listening to Real Estate Radio Washington, D.C. Metro with local expert Ryan Sloper. Now, here's Ryan.
Welcome back, Washington, D.C. Metro, to Ryan Sloper's Real Estate Radio, and I'm joined today by Louis Cammarosano, the general manager of HomeGain. Quick reminder, Real Estate Radio is designed to build the Washington, D.C. Metro's market by giving you good, free advice, whether it's real estate, finance, credit, anything that's related to your real estate. If you have any questions, the number to reach out to us is 877-245-2030. That's 877-245-2030. So I want to jump back into what was going on last week in the market. We just got a couple other things to wrap up. The housing numbers on Tuesday came in, and I guess they crushed it from what they thought was going to happen. Housing starts were at 629,000 above the 570,000 that was expected. Building permits were at 624,000 versus the 609 that was expected. The Dow was up 200 points on that day. In looking at that, it looks like that the construction was led by condominiums, which was actually interesting, and I think that that's probably in strategic areas. Obviously, builders aren't going to start building until they can, make a profit that, where they're not going to be in competition with homes up the street that are selling for, basically same size, half the amount of money. Would you agree there, Louis? I mean, I think most of this building is probably going on where I'm at here in the East Coast, and some of the areas that are appreciating a little bit more. I know in my neighborhood in general, they're throwing up houses all over the place, and I kind of looked at the price points, and they're very comparable to where the resales are selling for. So, that's the only time it really makes sense. And for condos to be jumping in, they're probably in a more desirable market.
Right. There's no nationwide housing shortage.
No.
There are shortages or opportunities where builders can get a good return on investment by building in those areas.
It's interesting because a lot of the economists say that for us to have a healthy economy, that these housing starts should be up closer to 1 million or 900,000 consistently. And I think they say that because I think that so much of the economy is dependent upon, actually that construction, because it feeds into so many other different, trades and fields that are dependent upon the construction for them to have work.
But if you think about the new home market, you would think, and it wasn't the case in the mid-2000s, that should be the main driver if real estate is going to drive the economy, because that's where something actually gets produced. You've got all the goods that are made, you have the construction, the work that goes on. Whereas buying and selling a home, nothing is really created or lost when you do that. You move into a house and you get a loan and you move in. That's about it. But buying a new home involves a lot more and a lot more real economic activity.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because I would think that if builders did have the capital, though, that they would want to build with the such low financing costs that are available to them. But I think that more of the problem is that the banks aren't willing to take the risks, because I know, my dad was in that industry for a while, and a lot of the times you'd be able to, start up, 5 and 6 houses at a time. And now it's kind of like you're not able to start building on that house until you actually have a contract.
Well, the risk there is, and especially now, is if you build new homes, and you made this point earlier, will people buy them versus the bargains that are available in the short sale foreclosure?
Yep.
Market.
Yeah, and in this market, in the D.C. metro area, I mean, I think we're actually finding that a lot more people are going that way to new homes because they're really not happy at the selection of homes that's out there otherwise. The short sales and foreclosures are not that discounted to where it's, okay, this is a great deal. We can get in here. We'll do the work ourselves. So they're saying, let's just go ahead and pay an extra $30,000 or $40,000 for the new home and get what we want in it. So
you don't see the same cultural affinity for new homes as you do for new cars.
No.
People seem to want to always get a new car, but people are more than happy to buy an old home.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the time, it depends. I guess it depends on who's buying the home. But if you have a vision, a lot of these older neighborhoods are actually more desirable than the new neighborhoods.
Well, that's true. There's certain construction you can't get. There's certain features you can't get. There's certain building materials they don't use anymore.
Right. The lots are a ton smaller than they used to be now. You know what I mean? They're really chopping the lots down.
One can make that argument about cars, though. There should be a vintage car market that's bigger than the new car market, but there isn't.
No, definitely not. On Wednesday, the MBA gave their statistics on mortgage applications. They were up 15.5% last week, and refinances were up 23%. That's kind of interesting to me. I just think that there was a little kick up in rates, so you had a lot of the people sitting on the fence jumping off and saying, okay, let's go ahead and lock in, hitting the panic button, so to speak. And it's interesting because, this is something that's been up and down, up and down, up and down for the last 6-7 months. It's been consistently in the range that we've been in for that period of time. And I don't know what else needs to change, especially like if you're looking to buy in the D.C. metro area. If you didn't, when we started talking about this 6 months ago, take advantage of it and you're still contemplating now, we have had a significant uptick in prices. It's probably a 3 to 5% increase in that period of time. So you have, in essence, cost yourself more money just in your, you sitting around thinking about it. So I'll continue to urge people that, nobody knows how long these rates are going to be around. I hope they're around for a while so that more people can take advantage of the, the deals and the low finance charges that are out there right now. But the reality is that all good things come to an end.
And especially, Ryan, most home buyers today, I think, are not looking to buy, flip, and move on. They're looking to move into that home for a substantial number of years. If that's the case, you're not gaining anything by trying to time the market or interest rates.
No, not at all. There's nothing to gain by trying to time the interest rate. And, I'd say most of the time you're not going to be able to time the interest rate. There's just too much that's going on. Like I said before, you and I have been thinking that interest rates should be up by 6% right now, where they should be, but they're not. So, you can never really guess. You can have the brightest economist on, and they couldn't tell you when it's going to happen. They can guess. But
Ryan, if you think about where you're trying to hold out for is lower interest rates, the chances of substantially lower interest rates are pretty remote.
Well, I think what it is that it's the price. People get so hung up on price versus cost, and we talk about this a lot. Is that, people sometimes will look and say, oh, that home's $300,000, and they kind of just, they do their own math behind the scenes, try to calculate what their principal and interest, tax, and insurance and all that is, versus, actually looking at, okay, well, what is that same house at $300,000 at 4.5% versus that house at $250,000 at 6.5%? You know what I mean? That simple example right there is what people are not paying attention to. And it's because the national media doesn't throw that out there. There's no talk about, the rising cost of mortgages on the horizon.
That's the Oscar Wilde quote. The man who knows the price of everything and the value of nothing.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, the purpose of Real Estate Radio is to kind of get this information out there, because this is what, professionals should be advising their clients. If you're out there right now and, you're in a situation where you're looking at a home and you're saying, well, maybe they can come down a little bit more, or, maybe I'm going to wait for this home to pop on the market. I've seen people that sit on the fence, Lewis, for, 6 to 12 months and then end up just missing out on everything. And then they just decide, I'm just going to rent at this point. Because
another literary reference, Hamlet, right?
Yeah. They just get frustrated with the process, because the process can be, it can be quite cumbersome sometimes. And if you get so wrapped up, and a lot of the time, first time home buyers, they'll go and see one of their first 2 or 3 or 4 properties, and they'll be, feel like they're so, vested in that house, they have to have it. And then they don't see another home like that for another 6 to 8 months. It just kind of puts a sour taste in their mouth, and they want to move on. And, realistic, like you just said, a lot of people for their starter home, I mean, you just need to be looking to get into something that's reasonably priced, that you're happy with. I mean, I'm not saying take something that you're not going to be happy with, but you might have to settle a little bit. You might have to get creative. You might need to talk about doing a renovation loan or a rehab loan, which we've talked about on the show numerous times. Because if you do have a vision there, like you can go into an older neighborhood and find a home that's banged up a little bit, but you can get in there and make it your own. Get a contractor that's willing to come in and bring that house up to date. I've seen a lot of that, and I think that that's a very good route to take for people out there that are considering their first home, because you can get into them a little bit cheaper if they're older, especially if they need work done to them. So I mean, I would highly advise you guys doing that. If you'd like me to give you some more advice, 877-245-2030. I'm glad to help you out. It's 877-245-2030. I wanted to jump in before we go to break on this article in CNN Money. I believe it was by Les Christie on short sale fraud that's plaguing the housing market. And it was a very interesting article because I'm just so confused that the banks would be so blind to this whole thing that they would let it go on. But not really, actually. It was a bank, I believe it was Regions Bank. And this is an example they gave, and someone in Bridgeport, Connecticut. They asked Regions Bank if they would accept, this is their agent, accept the $102,000 bid on a home that was underwater on its mortgage, under the impression that that was the best offer on that home. Regions agreed to the short sale and released the mortgage it owned on the home. And later that same day, the new owner, who was an investment group, turned around and flipped that house to another buyer for $132,500, which is netting a seller another $30,000 profit.
How is that fraud?
Well, because they're saying that the agent was involved with the actual investor and was basically holding offers, and only submitted the investor's offer. Does that make sense?
Well, the other offer didn't exist yet.
Well, no. They're basically what they're saying is that there was other offers that came in that were higher, but since that agent was tied in with the investment group, that was the only one that they submitted to the actual bank.
Was the agent working for the bank, or was the agent working for the seller?
In this case, the agent would have been working. Well, they would obviously, if they started the short sale transaction, they took the listings. They were working on behalf of the bank, which they're supposed to represent them.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, but what gets me about the whole situation there is, Lewis, is that they're talking about, they hired the agent. The agent typically does the BPO on the property to determine what the value is, but then also there will be an appraisal done on the property, right? So who ordered the appraisal? Did the real estate agent order the appraisal, or did the bank? Because if the bank ordered the appraisal, which they should have had a third party, a separate third party that they order an appraisal so they can get the real estate BPO, and they can take the appraisal and they can look at it and say, okay, well, the offer was 103, but the appraisal came in at 115. And they can make the call at that point. So if they allowed the real estate agent to order their own appraisal with somebody that they knew, then that's the bank's fault. You know what I mean? Because that's just lack of due diligence on their end.
Well, sure. The bank is also free not to take the price.
Exactly. And the interesting thing was, I believe that the guys that were in on this deal, they actually were found guilty. And I believe, let me see, I think it was like the last sentence in here. I believe they're actually going to do some time for this. They were found guilty. Where was it? Yep, here it is. 2 real estate agents were arrested. It was just one of 4 similar frauds that were listed in their indictment, which netted them a total of more than $180,000. They pled guilty and are awaiting sentence.
See, that is fraud. But let's say in the case where the bank is willing to accept one price, and then there's another real estate agent, there's somebody else willing to buy it the next day that the real estate agent wasn't aware of was willing to buy it, then the bank made a mistake.
Yeah, and I would say that that's not a problem at all. You know what I mean? I think that it was just what they must have found, and you can't tell through the article because they don't list all the specifics. But I'm assuming what probably happened was that, let's just say the agent got 4 offers in, but was working.
Only submitted the lower, and then they held out the other one so they can flip it to the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought it was the case where the bank was just ignorant that the house might be worth more, and they figured they'll take $100,000, even though somebody else might have paid $130,000 the next day.
Yeah, well, you know what? The thing about it is, if they didn't just do it the next day, if it would have been like 30 days or something like that, they probably wouldn't have thought anything about it. It was the fact that they went in and saw that it was the very next day that the house closed right behind it, so they basically had a straw buyer lined up for it. That's where the whole thing came into play. we're coming up on a break, though. When we come back, we are going to jump into the robo-signing foreclosures that haven't gone away, and also let you guys know if it's possible to remove short sales and foreclosures from your credit report. When we come back, stay right there.